let me ask you some questions about the good work you've just done. Who are these people who dance the pas de deux? I always assumed that they were the entertainment at the triple wedding ceremony, but what do they represent?
I have no idea, except it's, you know, as most ballets, they have a divertissement, and they're an entertainment, which is generally, you know, in most ballets, classical ballets, they have that, and I guess this just fits in nicely for as an entertainment to the king and the queen and so forth. So
I agree. That's exactly it. They are the essential, perennial, recognizable young couple. And also, since it's apropos of the weddings of all those wonderful people in the second act, in a way, they might be there to show how good it can be.
A marriage.
Yes, how good a marriage can be with the tenderness that goes in good conjugality between the man and the woman, and at the same time the respect, and as Lincoln Kirstein always mentioned, the platonic relationship of men and women, and also the etiquette, you know, the manners, all those things. They are, if you will, what the Sugar Plum is to Clara looking at womanhood. And when she sees Sugar Plum, she sees the possible ideal, the most extraordinary answer to ideal womanhood.
Does either of you recall anything in Midsummer that he said to you about your roles that was meaningful, even illuminating for you?
No, I don't remember. It's true, he didn't tell you how to do anything. He just felt the movements should speak for themselves, and that you should be intuitive. I think that's how he picked out dancers that were leading dancers, because he felt that they would they'd see it and they'd just know what it was without having to ask. I just feel that intuitively. I think, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I never heard him particularly explain or suggest anything that they were, but also but what I can see is how formally they start with each other and how it develops into those wonderful inventions that we'll never take for granted, but that are always coming. And it goes into something extraordinary, really, after starting like a little minuet almost.
Yeah, they actually bow to each other at the beginning.
Yes, literally, absolutely. Yeah. And then it goes places.
He once said to me, he did an outline of choreography that was clear in there, and then he said, we didn't go after, he didn't tell me exactly what to do or anything, he just said, Conrad, go home and make. Yes.
Go home and make.
Go home and make. So I'd go home, figure it out, think, and come back with an interpretation. And then he would usually, what I loved, he wouldn't say anything. When he would, and when he said something, of course, that was it, you know. But he let me, you know, just on a simple walk, how you're going to walk. Are you going to pull back, or you're just going to walk straight, or, you know, I'd be doing something with it, even though it was just nothing. And he would say, if he saw it was wrong or not artistic or not what he wanted, he'd tell me, no, I want it this way. Then he'd tell me.
Yeah.
Well, yes, because he was non-imposing in that sense, like all the great teachers are, because they already know you in a way, and he knew us, because that's why he wanted people in class. He told me, he said, if I don't see them in class, I forget them. I forget they're in the company, and I forget what I could do for them. So he is like a sculptor, you know, to put his hand into it. And because if he sees that we are unable to bring it to, to what it should be, then he will say something. But he's counting on us to see the things and how we relish them and, shine them up for him, and that's it.
Nancy Reynolds, our director, wrote, according to the dancers, one of the most rewarding aspects of participating in the making of Midsummer Night's Dream was watching Balanchine in rehearsal, acting and dancing all the parts. Was this true for you?
Absolutely, because some of the younger dancers needed a little bit of a demonstration, and he was always ready to do it and could do it very, very well. I remember him transforming himself literally into Odette for Suzanne Farrell for a personal rehearsal because he wanted her to go further in being a woman and everything, and he was literally doing it for her. So it goes he could do anything, and of course, the obvious thing was a rehearsal I saw together with Lincoln Kirstein watching of Villela in Pulcinella, Balanchine doing all this. It was an absolute amazing thing, and when you could see the different things that he could do everything if he had to. So to help and to go faster, and just because there's still a time to absorb and understand.
What do you feel about this, Conrad? Was he interesting in the rehearsals in that way?
Well, I just think, like a good actor, he had the feeling, and he'd show you the feeling, just come. And it would just be perfect. And his acting was wonderful because he didn't think about it, he just, did it, just like a good actor would. So he had that quality of giving you that. If you were able to pick it up,
Absolutely.
it was good, but maybe not just the way he did it, but he certainly gave you the expression.
And so much of the movement recreates the idea of the expression that you're trying to do backwards in a way. And it makes me think of something he said one day. He said, café au lait, you can never remove au lait and have your café again. It's a café au lait. So it's like expression and technique. Mm-hmm. It's one thing, and that's
hand in hand.
Yes, that's it.
Speaking of doing, is the pas de deux that you were rehearsing for Midsummer Night's Dream, it's so beautiful it takes your breath away. But is it technically challenging, do you think?
Not really, in as much as I think, I don't know, if you know what you're doing, and for the boy, now for the girl, I think it is very technically challenging. That promenade is very, very hard for her. And if everything goes well, and with the boy, as we just saw, how perfect everything, it just worked out just great. And
but of course, when you have a partner like Conrad, who's calm, reassuring, and so aware, he perceives everything about balance, about what it should be, about where the woman should be and how, and he can tune you like an instrument, really like a player with a cello or something. It's just incredible. But it is true that in this pas de deux, the control and the slow movements are very hard because, as we know, Balanchine can dance this company, the fastest dancing company in the world. But when he went slow, it was all the way too slow. And sometimes in class, it gives you combination also, slow to die for. He wanted to push you to the contrast, to the maximum, like with the speed. Same thing, to the extremities.
I would like to say just one thing earlier about really hard, I thought, and he did it beautifully. When she came back with that hitch kick and he caught her. Wow. Now that was hard, really? And it was beautifully done and strong. You had to be really strong there. So there's a few things in there you had to have great strength and coordination, which he's a very good partner. About the end, as they did it at the last time, it was just the way it should be. she got up there, and then that, and holding your breath, I think I did, I don't know whether the audience, as she goes forward, and then he caught her, and then it took his time, and it went, just beautiful. Unfolding, it just folded right up, and it was, I think, an incredible end to this beautiful part.
Taking the time for people to do and for people to recognize. That is one of the lessons that he also taught, of course, everybody who watched. You know, to be said, to be written about, to be just seen. You know, he taught that to the others.
In ballet history, Conrad, the dancers that perform the premiere of the ballet, as you know, are considered forever after as the originators of the role. But with A Midsummer Night's Dream, something quite unusual happened in that you danced two roles at the premiere, the man in the duet, of course, and Titania's Anonymous Cavalier in Act One. Can you tell us how that came about?
Well, Jacques was injured,
Yeah.
or
Jacques
was he sick? I can't remember. And he was going to do it, and we were understudy. And I was really concentrating on my other thing that I did, the Cavalier in the first act. And shock of shocks, I really didn't know. I knew the Pas de Deux, but I didn't know all the rest, the whole divertissement part. So.
We should add here that the leading couple, as you were at the first performance, dances the whole divertissement and is involved in part in the divertissement both before and after the Pas de Deux.
And there was a variation. And so Jacques and I were up on the telephone. What do you do? Okay, and I'd write it down. Okay, and then what's the next thing? And so forth. So I wrote the whole thing down, up all night, and then I felt sort of I was ready, and Balanchine took out and never to return to the male variation that was in there. It was out and never.
You know, I was listening to you about that variation, and I was thinking, how come I've forgotten that variation? We never saw it. Is that what
it was? Never
it
done.
never happened.
He choreographed it, but it was
because
never.
there was a fugue also. There was also a fugue for the men, remember? And that also has disappeared.
So it disappeared with that not doing it the first time. No one did it later, and so. So that was gone because of that emergency, I think. And he probably liked it the way it was. It was made it tight and maybe enough already. Yeah.
But tell me now, how did you learn the role in the Pas de Deux? You were the understudy, and were you there at the creation, where you were in the back of the studio, and so you learned it?
Possibly not every time, but enough to know what it was, that particular section.
And it's funny because Mr. B had told me that I was too small for Jacques for a number of roles that he would have, you know, put us together. So he said, you know, I like you two in Stars and Stripes sometimes, and for this one, you know, because of the type of Pas de Deux where the man really cherishes and carry the woman like a precious jewel all over the place, that made sense. I was petite, Jacques was tall, you know, that was working that way. So, but Conrad and I, with the Tchaikovsky Pas de Deux, though, that's something that he didn't see the same way. Definitely, it was a question that he wanted the two of us together by then. Not me with Jacques for Tchaikovsky Pas de Deux, because then the difference of size and all that, or maybe, I don't know, what he saw, that was not a couple for him for that Pas de Deux.
Midsummer Night's Dream was choreographed in 1962 and was the first program-length original ballet created in America, I read, which startled me, and had all the trappings a Russian choreographer would have indulged in. Nancy Reynolds wrote in Repertory Review, lavish costumes and scenery, a complicated plot, passages of mime, and majestic walking about. Now, Balanchine, all of these, of course, were entirely unlike Balanchine's abstract ballets, like Agon and Concerto Barocco. But Balanchine claimed that Mendelssohn's music was his inspiration. And of course, to make the ballet long enough, like Frederick Ashton did it the next year as a one-act ballet. He had, Balanchine had 2 acts. To make it long enough, he had to add a lot of Mendelssohn to the original overture and incidental music to Midsummer Night's Dream. Some of it was fairly obscure, which is typical of Balanchine, who liked the music and wanted his audience to know the music. But do you feel that the various elements in the score as it stands now are compatible? Do they go well together?
One could say that. I think that with what he did with them, it legitimized it also completely in a way, because it was successful for the characterizations or for the scenes, you know, the different overtures that he added and all, it worked. And that particular little string symphony, how old was Mendelssohn? I think he was 13 or 13 years old or something like this. So that was another sweet detail for something that was, you know, in that time maybe, that was something that Balanchine enjoyed having also, reviving something of that kind, and it's a little thinner sound with all the strings, but he enjoyed that very much, and it was his purpose, for his purpose in the style of the ballet, that was just right. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a problem, personally.
I think
the mosaic
the audience is ready for what you couldn't do in the other act and telling a story. This was where he got to choreograph some just classical ballet story, plotless. And I think the audience was refreshed. And then they brought it back at the very end. Everyone just conclude the whole thing.
And all the great highlights that we like from Mendelssohn were there too. I mean, you know, the essential Midsummer Night's Dream, purely Midsummer Night's Dream. So it's all there.
You've called the duet you've just been coaching, Violette, among, I'm quoting now, among the most heartbreakingly beautiful pas de deux Balanchine has ever done, full of things that were intended for, as you have already said, a tall partner delicately to collect a smaller girl. Has it been cast that way before, since, do you know?
I would imagine that even if the girl is bigger, many men would be able to deal with that because they're also thin and delicate and lovely. So yes, I think that probably, but it's not also just the look of it. That would be a nice thing. That's the luxury, to have that look, the little one in the cup, you know. But I think it's also what the pas de deux says about them, how their relationship to each other, the respect, the tenderness, the care, the delicacy, the homage to each other, men, women, the platonic aspect of it, definitely. It's that says it. And the woman has to be that. She has to be that delicate and yet contributing person, and he has to be protective and yet equal to her also.
Is it true that Balanchine often casts those two roles with experienced dancers, older dancers, veteran dancers?
They do need skilled dancers to be able to have the confidence to recognize the material and do it justice, though. I mean, not to say you couldn't put an innocent dancer who could suddenly, you know, reveal itself with everything. Natural understanding does exist and is always lovely because it's so fresh. And it's a sort of first time, wonderful.
The Midsummer pas de deux, has its tone changed at all over the years, do you think?
The women are more impatient a little bit. They're used to do by themselves. They're a little bit, and the man is waiting to help if it's needed. Less listening to each other, maybe, not consulting each other too much for what they're going to do. They know it, they know what to do. And she goes first.
Yeah. Is that the feminist way?
Yeah, it's a little bit more contemporary sort of feeling. Yeah, a little bit more.
It's concentration. I just feel that way sometimes.
Yes.
That I see, and it doesn't look as concentrated, and
Yes.
why we look concentrated and they don't, I don't understand. I'm bragging.
No, because it was slow, controlled, and you had to find it within you, not out there. not spitting it, but first, you know.
And placing, take your foot and put it down. And, you know, this something very simple can be, if you do it with concentration, can be make a difference. People look, you know, rather than just not just taking a step. But Balanchine would teach that in class and teach that in everything you did, and spacing, being always spacing, where you were and which direction you were in, all that kind of stuff. And you had to make sure everything was, and that gave it gravity somehow.
Yes. It addressed itself to a specific.
Yeah. This pas de deux in Midsummer is unusual, I think, because it doesn't seem to be danced to the audience at all. It's danced for the audience. It is public.
Yes. They're allowed to see it.
Yes. But there is absolutely no grabbing the audience's attention, which is very unusual in ballet. Would you agree? Or am I
Yes,
completely
but
off?
it's only someone with such mastery as Balanchine could do something like that and literally get away with it, with the result that he doesn't even care about, but that we know is certain because of it. Because it's daring to hold someone's attention without, you know, that sort of aggressive or invading statement, but to demand the attention of the audience sustained and maintained for such a long time in that mode and get it.
Also,
Yes.
just when I said before, he'd say, go make. Well, he knew Violette would make, and he knew Jacques would make, and he knew all his principal dancers that he picked
Yes.
would have that quality of doing something with it. And I think sometimes, you know, if you get a beautiful dancer and they're doing the choreography, it's not gonna punch anybody. And that's, I think, it's picking. I wasn't a very good dancer. I was picked by him, though, for my concentration and how I moved
Yes,
and and
absolutely.
my expression.
How long did it take Balanchine to choreograph this pas de deux?
He worked so fast. It was extraordinary, wasn't it?
Well, he was always fast.
Always. He was always under the gun, too, to produce the subscription and, you know, all those things. Yes, no, I don't think it took him that long.
No, nothing like, nothing was like
And
pulling
those
teeth
were the
with him.
great years. He was on a roll. He could do anything, anytime.
Some
Yeah.
choreographers struggle, and it just seemed to flow out of him like magic.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege to talk to you both, Violette Verdi and Conrad Ludlow.
Thank you so much, Louise. Thank you.
Thank you.